Alright, Seth, this is a little sanding demo for you. This car's probably really similar to the Chrysler you'll be working on as far as the damage that you have. Now, given that there's no body damage on a panel and the panel's straight and all we're doing is stripping the clear off, and we really don't need to block it because we're really stripping the old product off the top and we're getting down to the surface. We're not trying to go to the metal. We're not trying to break through the sealer or the paint. Maybe break through the sealer or the paint, then you're gonna have to, go to primer. I think there's about 400 videos up there, and most of them are used car videos, so that's mostly what I do, stuff like repair damage like this. And it's a lot different than restoration work, like on my Nova, where the whole thing's primed. That'll get block sanded, and I'll dry sand it with 180. I'll prime it one more time, and then I'll water sand it with 400. Then I'll go to 600. Then I'll seal it. Then I'll shoot it. And there's a lot of different processes, and it depends on the vehicle you're working on, really. So let me grab the stand. And I'll do a little demonstration because I might need two hands, and I'll see if I can help you out here. Now, if you're going to get into the metal and you're going to get down deep into these panels, your plans might have changed a little since you originally were just wanting to sand it down and shoot it. And that's why I did those videos of that type of repair. The car lot repairs get, well, you saw it. I try not to edit my videos, so they're real time, real life, real, I'm not splicing them together, and it's not because I don't like to, it's just I don't have the ability to. So basically you see the repair from start to finish. I got a couple different items over here. I'd say the DA is probably one of the widest tools used in body shops across the world. Palm sanders, several different types. This is the brand I prefer, Dynabrade. It's about $270. It's I think it's the best. It's the lightest, most powerful. And if you use it every day, that's the kind of tool that you need. And I use it a lot. So this one's about 8 years old now. So there's a lot to be said for the quality of the tool. So basically, as far as sanding the car by hand, I don't know. That's not something I'm accustomed to unless you're wet sanding. As far as stripping clear off by hand, that would just not be the way to go, in my opinion. That's the one good thing about YouTube is you can watch several different people get the same results and take different paths to that end result. This is 320, okay? So if we were to put 320 on this is a skid pad. It's sort of flexible, sort of soft. This is a long, skinny block. Hopefully I'm getting that in there. You can use this if you're doing mud work and you're wanting to block mud work. I always block sand that. I'll knock it down with a DA, then I'll go to the block. You can use the sandpaper on the roll. This is 180. This can be put on like this, and you got a nice blocking surface there. We used to use paint paddles, back when they had good paint sticks, and I think this block here sort of replicates a paint stick. So yeah. Close that door, buddy. So that would be a good instance for block sanding by hand if you were blocking primer or trying to make something straight. Anytime you use a sandpaper on a block opposed to a DA that has an orbital motion, it puts a much more aggressive scratch in the panel. the scratch from the DA is less aggressive than if you block by hand. So that's one thing to keep in mind at this point. So we got our 180 there. We're going to put some 320 on this skid it pad, and that's what these are for. You can basically put one of these DA papers on there. Fits perfect. You can sand with that also. That would be another hand sanding tool. This is I like this one a lot if I'm blocking a big primer area, you know, if I'm doing a big repair. I think HPR has some of these. These are, you can find them if you look around online. I love this block. It's big and it's fat. And that would be something that you use for like 600, you know, if you're in your final stage of blocking your panels. I use some 600 on this. Really good block. This is the wet dry paper, the black stuff. This is the 400, and this is the 6. Now, if you weren't going to DA and you were going to block your primer, if you primed your repair area and you wanted to block your primer, you'd probably start with the 400 and go to your 600. If it's a larger, more Bondo repair, you know, you might have to block it with 180. I like to sort of get the Bondo straight and not use the primer as a straightening agent. I used to depend on the primer a lot. I'd hammer it on there and I'd block the car straight with the primer. And when you do that, the car looks really nice. And then, you know, as the years go by and the repair starts to sink in, the primer starts to get hard, and the car can get wavy, and it's just better to block the Bondo and make it straight before you prime it. Or whatever surface you're working with, you know, you want to make sure it's flat, and we're going to get to that. So there you go, that's a couple of the grits. Round block, you know, little short blocks. These harder 3M blocks, you know, for doing mud work when you're in the rougher stages. I like to try to use the plastic stuff, you know, when I'm in the paint stages. Okay, so that covers the blocks and stuff. So we'll do a little demo here. We're definitely not going to use this block because this is for wet sanding. We know that. We'll go ahead and put some sandpaper on this one though, and I'm going to put 180 on this. And we got a new roll of 180 here, DA paper. We're going to put that on the DA. This is a semi-soft pad. This is the pad I like to use. There was a time where I wet sand everything, and if you look back, I don't know what video it was a long time ago, I told this story about a body man that I worked with. We really didn't get along. I was a painter, he was a body man. I wet sanded everything and he absolutely couldn't stand it. Every time he walked by, he'd mumble under his breath and say nasty things to me, and eventually me and him had it out and we became best friends. That's sort of how it works, I guess. And he paid me to DA a job instead of wet sand it. And he did the body work on it, and that's how it works when you're in a shop. You know, one guy will do the body work, one guy does the paint work, and so on and so on. And he did a job, he did a Bondo job repair, and I primed it and I DA'd it. And he explained to me that although blocking has been done for years, and I'm sure there's guys out there that are expert at blocking cars, my cars always came out straight when I blocked them. It was just messy. But that block is how wide across and how long. what's the bigger, flatter surface. So I took the challenge and I DA'd the car, and I could see no difference other than it took me half the time, my shoes weren't wet, and I was liking it. So that's where the friendship started there, and I started banging them out with a DA. Now I always, in the final process, I'll use the gray Scotch-Brite and scuff my panels wet and clean the car, and of course all that stuff applies. I don't always wash the car before I get started on the used car stuff. I pull it in and hammer it. If it's got an excessive amount of foo-foo on it, or it's been detailed, then yes, I'll have to de-slime it. But if you don't use that stuff a lot and you don't wax your car as the general rule, then you probably, it's always a good idea to follow the book. But if you want to wash the car, it can't hurt. But let's get on with this little demonstration so this doesn't take forever here. We have the 180 on the DA, and we're going to pick a spot. I guess I'll go ahead and do this side over here with the DA real quick, so it's going to get loud. When you DA, you don't want to tilt it up on the side. You want to keep it flat and keep it moving, or you'll gouge in. But we're going to DA this down. We're going to take this clear coat off here. But you need to be outside while I'm doing this. So anyway, there we go. We sanded that spot down there, and let me blow that off. And we had a little guy come in. I don't have a fan on, so I don't want him to breathe this stuff in. So let me go ahead and blow this off. So hold your ears. And can you see the water in the line? Okay, so let me get a close-up of this. So you can see our sealer here is the green. Hang on, we're diving. We have our green sealer. This is the green surface that you see, or gray. And this is our base coat. You can see the non-shiny appearance, very satiny. You feel no transition when you run your hand over this. This is flat. You hit that with some 320 and throw that sealer over there and you're fine. I do it all the time. I know the book says 400 to 600. Primarily, the sealer as a rule is used to get a uniform coverage on the panel and make the base coat cover faster. Now it can be abused into a sealer surfacer, a primer surfacer, and that's how you're going to use it. If you're not comfortable with that and you want to use primer and prime the car and come back the next day and block sand that with 400 and then go to 600 and then top coat that, yes, you get a much finer finish that way. This will work, it will work fine, and you'll be happy with the results. Now moving on to our demonstration from the DA to the hand sanding. So we have the same damage on this side. You saw how long I was sanding over there. So we're going to go with the 180. We're going to use it on the block. Okay, I don't know if this is going to do it any justice, Seth, but yes, it is feathering back by hand, but we have a much rougher surface here. You can see the scratch. Much smoother over here than it is here. And this is at the 180 stage. So let's go ahead and move on. We're gonna go to the next step with the DA. We're gonna hit this with some 320, and then we'll hit this with some 320 by hand. Okay, we got 320. On the block. All right, there we go, man. You see, when you go to the 320 after you 180, the key is to just take the clear off with the 180 and try to stay in the base coat. When you go to the 320, you use the base coat as a guide coat to get to the gray. You see how that's all gray, all sealer? That's how I like to take them down. I'd like to make them all the sealer or either all the base coat. Depends on how much base coat you have left. Most of the time, the base coat that's been exposed to the sun comes right off to the sealer real quick, and as the paint comes off and it's real chalky, that's the dead stuff that you want to get off. Now, stripping it by hand, you're going to be much more aggressive with your grits. You can see this has got a much more aggressive scratch in it than this does. You'd probably have to go down to 600 to get it this smooth by hand. And you know, when you use the DA, it has a different effect. The different techniques, the different ways you use sandpaper leaves a different scratch in the surface. These panels are flat, you know, or I wouldn't have car after car to do, because nobody wants a wavy car. And so that's the way that I use the DA. And I use the DA to strip the clear off. If you're going to do it by hand, the only other way I would suggest stripping it would be aircraft stripper, and that stuff's really nasty. You have to take the panel off, and it's hard to remove the roof. As far as the sill panel goes, there's going to be 100 people that'll tell you can burn that in and you'll be fine. And I've done it in a couple of videos for people that wanted to see it, and it's just common practice on used car lots, but it won't last. And it's a much better repair just to do the whole panel. This roof has a break in it here, but on the LHS, I believe it's all one piece, and it comes all the way to the front window and breaks off at the fender section. All you have to do is get some comment in the gray Scotch Brite pad and scuff the color, and you can clear right over it. You don't have to put color all the way here. So basically on your post, you would paint your roof. You seal just your roof area wherever you're going to sand and whatever the affected areas are. Lay your sealer down after you sand it properly. Put your sealer over the areas that you sanded. When you lay your paint down, you bring your paint in and fan it into your post areas. You don't go all the way to the bottom with the paint. You want to stop, have a transition area where you're blending the color in, and then clear the entire panel. You can burn the clear end stuff, and there's going to be 100 people that tell you they do it all the time, and there's blenders with UV protection in it, and it's wonderful, but it's always much better to not have a stopping point and a panel and just clear the whole thing. That's why I use that car with a stripe for a demonstration. Again, we're not taking color all the way to the stripe. We're using the top of that panel to blend the deck lid and the quarter panel so we get proper color match. And on the side by the stripe, all you're going to have is clear. And the preferred method for me would be to strip the stripe off and clear the whole quarter panel, but that gets pretty involved if you're not a painter, and it sounds like a lot of work. So it's you have to do it however you have to do it. And the other thing that you have to keep in mind that this is your first car, so you hope for the best, and we'll all try to give you advice. You have to decide what advice to take, and you really have to go with one person. If you try to take too many people's advice, there's just so many different ways to do this, and it's not that it's the wrong or right way. Different people are taught different methods and different ways, and there's just so many different ways of telling you and showing you how to do it. So I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. It's not that your friend's wrong for saying that he strips cars by hand. It might be that somebody showed him how to do it with a DA and they were awful at it, and that stuck in his mind. And so that's where we're at with that. Nobody's right or wrong. It's just one of those things. It's personal preference. And the quickest way that I found is the DA method, for what you're doing. You're not dealing with any damage on the panel. You're not dealing with any dents. The panel per se is straight, and you're just taking this burnt, paint off of it. You can see right there, I could do this hood and probably, strip it in 30 minutes and have it painted in, less than an hour. And that's what it's all about when you're doing this kind of work. You get paid by the panel. Usually it's the most you'd get a panel would be like 150 bucks, and that includes stripping that paint off. Now a lot of guys will go in and they'll try to prime over this and bury this, and that never works. That's Mako's technique. Mako, they've been painting some trucks for us at work, and they're doing them for $370 for all overs, and not a lot of prep work. So they don't even sand the car. If you listen to the fine print when they do the commercial, they say it's chemically sanded, real quick, chemically sanded integrated clear coat. And this is what they chemically sand your car with right here. Bulldog adhesion promoter. So I'm gonna go ahead and shut this off and let you go.